Well, welcome to another episode of We Don't Color on the Dog. We've got with us Florida Education Association President Andrew Spar. Andrew, I know you're doing a statewide tour. Thank you for taking some time out to do this podcast.
Absolutely. It's an honor to join you today.
You know, we've hearing around the state, and we reported it last week, is that enrollment's down in public schools dramatically. I think we're seeing an erosion here in Escambia County Public Schools, over 1,100 students this fall, but it's even bigger in some of the larger school districts. How do you see the state of public education right now, Andrew?
I would actually say that first and foremost, we have amazing public schools, and public schools accept every child. We don't turn any children away. If they have some kind of disability or learning disability, we accept them, we bring them in, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that kids get the education they deserve and need. And that's not true in any other segment of the education space, right? But yeah, we're seeing some enrollment declines throughout the state. We're seeing families saying, hey, I'm going to take my kid to some other venue, but very often they come back. In fact, within 2 years of getting a voucher, students return to our public schools. Last year, there were 22,000 students throughout the state who were in public schools but somehow appeared on the voucher roster. And so what happened when that came into play last year, the state didn't know what to do. Public schools were saying, no, these kids are here. We count them. They're present in our school. And the voucher company was like, hey, well, we got them on the voucher list. They must be getting a voucher. At the end of the day, the state split the money. They said, we're going to give half of the money for those students to the public schools and half to the voucher program. And by the end of the year, they determined all 22,000 were in the public schools, and districts still haven't gotten the money from that yet. So
I've heard that, Andrew, and I was talking to one of the state lawmakers, and they were saying there are as many as, on any given day, 30,000 children, they don't know where they're at.
Well, I was in Orlando recently. The superintendent in Orange County Public Schools, they're down about 7,000 students this year, almost half, about 32 to 36,000 of the 32 to 3,600, not thousand. They're down 7,000. 36 to 32 to 3,600 of those students are migrant students, and they don't know where they are. They haven't disenrolled in the public schools. They just didn't show up. So they haven't registered somewhere else. Does that mean they are somewhere else in the country? Does that mean they've gone out of the country? We don't know. But that's a prime example. That's half of the students in Orange County, for example, and we don't know where they are. And so the way the money is being wingled right now with vouchers makes it harder to track. The fact that there's really no accountability on the voucher program. Homeschooling has become a big deal, where parents are able to take money and use it for all kinds of crazy things that I think would upset most taxpayers. Buying new furniture, buying big screen TVs, going to Disney, taking a family trip to Disney and calling it an educational experience, and taxpayers are footing the bill for that. I mean, that stuff is crazy to me.
Well, and it's we're seeing also this dysfunction that's happening at the administrative level, is where when it comes down to school districts, they're deciding, do they need to close schools? Teachers, faculty thought they were working at one school or a particular grade. They're being shifted around. It's very disruptive just for the children and the faculty.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that at the beginning of every school year, districts start based on some assumptions that they have during the year. This year was really challenged because the budget got approved very late. It wasn't completed till June for a July 1 start date. But not only did the budget come late, it's a very poor budget for public schools right now. Florida ranks 43rd in the nation in funding for our public schools. I have a feeling we're going to slide this year because the budget was just woefully inadequate. And so districts have struggled with that. And then because of that, there's no real cushion there. So if you have a slight decrease in enrollment in one school, you may have to shift teachers around, where in other years they might have said, look, we're going to let it ride because we have a little bit of a cushion at play here, and districts just don't have that.
And I think the other thing that stands out is, and we're seeing it here in schools, and I think for our listeners and viewers, I want them to understand, Escambia County is not a unicorn. What we see happening here is happening around the state. We've talked about some of our inner city schools that it's so disruptive, just the environment itself is, that a teacher may start with 20 kids and they're not going to have the same 20 kids at the end of the year. Their enrollment is changing constantly with kids moving around as well as coming back from a voucher program. I think that creates a lot of disruption.
Yeah, look, when we see, so yes, absolutely. I mean, you do see, especially in counties in Florida, but I would say maybe even a lot here in Escambia County because of the economic level of the community. You tend to have people moving more and more. They can't afford to live where they're living now, or their lease is up and they're moving to another apartment, or they're living with family members and bouncing around. We see that a lot in our public schools, which means students are bouncing around too. Disrupts their education. What I love about what we do in public schools, even in Escambia County, is there is a school choice program in terms of public school choice. And so it's very possible that a kid who's starting, can the family get them there? And so there's a lot more we have to work through, especially when it comes to kids who live in poverty and even kids for working middle class families who are struggling right now to make ends meet.
Talk about the teachers themselves, what this environment's doing for them. I have a daughter that teaches middle school. She's become frustrated because she keeps hearing about teachers' pay going up, but it doesn't make it to her paycheck. And she's dedicated.
Yeah, first let's start with the fact that we have a massive teacher and staff shortage in the state of Florida. No county is exempt from that. Counties hired less this year. They have fewer positions this year, obviously because of student enrollment declines, but also because of budget cuts. We're seeing larger class sizes this year as districts are trying to grapple with the lack of resources and still trying to make sure there's some money to do pay increases. And negotiations will be starting soon here in Escambia County for the school year we're in right now. But I also think we have to recognize that these are very difficult times. We are seeing teachers called out by a commissioner of education on so many levels and for so many things, just for caring about kids. We have one situation in Brevard County where a teacher called a student by their preferred name, the same name this student had been going by their entire high school career. The teacher had the student in 10th grade and then had him again in 12th grade. And in March of last year, the parent lodged a complaint against all of the teachers at that school for not using the child's name on the birth certificate, which was a new law that was passed a couple of years ago. And the teacher lost her job over it. And we've been fighting with her side by side with it. The state was going to take the teaching certificate. We fought to make sure that didn't happen. The new commissioner came in, said, no, we've got to take that teaching certificate from that teacher and make an example out of her. This is a crazy environment for doing your job, right? Like, we want teachers to connect to our kids. And if a child has been going by a name for at least 4 years, why all of a sudden is the teacher being disciplined for not knowing they shouldn't have called the child by that name, the student by that name? And this was a high school student, right? This was not even, this was a high school senior. So I think there's that environment right now where teachers feel like they're being attacked every day, and they kind of are. It almost feels like a witch hunt. When the commissioner of education and some state board members say, find out what's going on in your schools because there's lots of things that shouldn't be, and we want to know what they're doing that they're not supposed to be doing, and then report it. When they set up a hotline and say, call and complain about your teacher to the commissioner of education, there's a problem. When they're saying to teachers, call out your colleagues when you think they're doing something wrong, it's a problem, right? Like, this is not a safe space anymore for people. And it's just going to drive more people out of the profession. And here's what I'm concerned about. That's what they want. They want to decimate public schools, and they want to chase great people out of our public schools. And that only impacts the students. 80% of students in the state of Florida get their education at their neighborhood public school.
Well, and Andrew, the other piece is there are people making boatloads of money off of these vouchers. We're learning more and more of side management deals where the charter school's one thing or the school receiving the money, but then there are these side deals where someone's getting a management contract that is 10% of the total voucher revenue. It's a money-making operation for people, and we have no measurement to show the quality of education is better. We don't measure the voucher program.
There's 1,330 pages in the education law book that public schools must follow. There are 68 pages for charter schools, and there's only 40 pages for voucher and private schools. There is really no accountability outside of the public schools. The public schools are governed by school boards that have school board members who are elected by the people that you can call at any time. Charter schools are managed by for-profit corporations. Don't let them fool you and say they're public schools. These are publicly funded, privately run schools. And it's about the bottom line. We saw a situation in Osceola County a few years ago where the last day of school comes, the school shuts down, leaves the parents in a lurch. They couldn't even get their records so they could enroll their students in other schools because this private school that was accepting vouchers just shut down without any warning. We saw charter schools. We see charter school failures all over the state every year. There was one recently in Tallahassee, big charter school company, Renaissance Charters, shuts down the school last minute, sells the property, which arguably was funded with taxpayer money to build that charter school. They own it, not the taxpayers, sells it to a private school. The private school is going to open and take over the school, and August comes and they never open and no one ever hears anything again from them. Like, people are being left in the lurch. Students are losing education, and no one seems to care about that. But our public schools are being burdened every day with archaic and punitive laws that have led to increased testing on students, changes in how we evaluate teachers, how we pay teachers and staff in our schools, laws that do everything that creates the frustration you just talked about. That's what's happened. The number of laws in Florida, the size of that education law book has nearly doubled over the last 20.
Well, and I think you hit on a lot of great points, Andrew, and it really does. The mantra of the legislature and the governor's office has been parents' rights to choose where their kids get education. But in the system that we have, parent has no idea if they're going to put their child, take them a public school. They know what a grade is. They know what the performance is. They don't know the performance of a school down the street that's privately owned or church affiliated, or they don't have that same kind of metric. So they're making a choice not based on any sort of facts to say that this is going to be a better education or not. And then when you disrupt the public school side, where you make sure that it is always chaotic, you're just feeding people outside, pushing them out of the system.
And it's done for money. I think you hit on it when you said that earlier. This is about money. It's not about kids. If it was about kids, we would have we'd have a standard testing program and measurement program, whether it was public schools or private schools. And a lot of other states do. We don't, because it's not about making sure kids are getting the education they deserve and need. And it's not about parental rights, right? The so-called school choice is schools choosing who they're going to allow in or not allow in. If you have a student who has a learning disability or a physical disability or a mental disability, they're not going to let them into a lot of schools. Public schools will welcome every child with open arms, not just because we have to under the Florida Constitution, because it's our mindset. It's who we are. We care about kids. We put kids first. How many teachers take money out of their own pocket to support students, or come to a Saturday soccer game because their students are playing soccer at the municipal field somewhere down the road, right? Like, we do that all the time because we care about kids. These charter school companies, these private school companies, that's about money. And you want to make sure that there are boundaries there. And I want to talk about parent rights. I'm a parent. I have two daughters, one who's finishing up her master's at FIU in Miami. My other daughter is just started her junior year of high school, doing phenomenally well. She's doing dual enrollment. She is in a public school in Volusia County where I live. And she gets, she does phenomenally well and has incredible teachers with incredible access to programs that excite her about being at school, right? And that's what we want for every child. As a parent, I'm denied rights under this governor and this commissioner of education because I want my daughter to take an advanced placement class on African American studies. I'm a white Jewish guy. My wife is African American, and our kids are raised with mixed races and mixed religions, and we've taught them early on who they are and that they live in a great country and a great time where they get to be whoever they want, right? And so my daughter can't take an African American history AP exam course because the state of Florida won't allow public schools to offer it. Where are my rights in that regard, right? And then let's also talk real about parent rights and freedoms. Every freedom, every right in this country does have guardrails and boundaries on it, right? There are restrictions on our rights as parents in the sense that we can't abuse our kid, right? For example, I know that sounds extreme, but that's the reality of it. We can't have our rights trample other people's rights. And I think that's what we're seeing right now in our schools, that some parents believe their rights and their beliefs should override the rights and beliefs of other parents and other students. And by the way, do you ever hear the governor talk about students' rights? Do you ever hear him talk about the fact that the Florida Constitution, Article 9, Section 1, guarantees students a free, high-quality public education in this state? That's a huge constitutional right. But we don't talk about our students. We talk about parents and not kids. We talk about charters and vouchers and not kids. How about we talk about our students? How about we talk about our children, our grandchildren, our nieces and our nephews? How about we talk about them and what they need to be successful?
Great points, Andrew. I appreciate you coming on today. We will do this again. Maybe once we get halfway through the session, we'll regroup. And I'd love your take on how you see things moving.
Anytime. We'd love to come back.
Take care, my friend.
Thanks for watching, and to keep up with what's going on, be sure and subscribe. Just click on the little dog to the right and click the subscribe button. You can also like this video and click on the bell, which will notify you of new content. This really helps the channel grow. We appreciate you.